Hello and welcome back to what is it, like the fifth installment of Zay Historicizes Now? Honest to God, I will let you guys know, like, this is my first nighttime edition and I'm actually really, really loving how it looks. Like, this is, like, better than the daytime. But at the exact same time, like, this is my fourth time trying to do this. Like, I didn't have my mic ready. I had to delete some videos off the camera to create space. Yeah, and this was like a completely spontaneous decision for me to like just sit in front of the camera basically and just be like, okay, well, time to record your thoughts. This video is, I guess, not quite as planned out as my last one, so it's not like I have like a bunch of research with me. What I really wanted to look into this particular video was the gay agenda, and I think the way that a lot of people have come to look, I mean, it's the way that it's been spotlighted so much and so often, but for those of you who missed it, yesterday was the Video Music Awards. It was like I think this is like the 40th anniversary of MTV, so they had like the Video Music Awards, and, you know, for those of you who watch, you watched. I'm gonna be completely honest, like, I saw the pre-show. Alright, and my camera turned off again, I don't know why. Okay, so like, yeah, as I was saying, I saw the pre-show, and I streamed it on YouTube, but then I didn't really watch the main show. I just decided to watch like particular performances. Like, I was looking forward to Doja Cat, Chloe, Normani, and that was basically it. But I know Lil Nas X also performed, and of course, like, that's the talk of the town because it's Lil Nas X. And I know there were other performances like Olivia Rodrigo and Justin Bieber and Machine Gun Kelly, but I don't really care about any of those people. But, you know, I was really looking forward to Chloe, Normani, and Doja Cat, and they all like really brought it for the most part. Like, it was pretty good. But during the show, when he won, I think it was the VMA, like VMA, he won the Video of the Year award. Lil Nas X won the Video of the Year award for Montero, and he mentioned, I don't even know if it was his Video of the Year speech because I think he won several times over the course of the night, but he mentioned the gay agenda.
Okay, first I want to say thank you to the gay agenda. Let's go, gay agenda!
And one of the things that's so funny about Lil Nas X mentioning that is because people have written him as the face of the gay agenda, or definitely like the face of somebody who's there to feminize black men, like, you know, like the agenda to make black men feminine. And I talked before about his controversies with like Lil Boosie and Jocelyn Hernandez and, you know, a whole host of, you know, the homophobes coming out screaming and virtue signaling about the children. But I decided to just sort of like bring up and just talk a little bit about the gay agenda and how I feel about it, because I'm somebody who obviously fell for it, you know. I mean, come on now, like, I'm definitely a part of the gay agenda, so like, let's be real. But I was actually watching a YouTuber who, okay, so I literally just like clicked this was like 30 minutes ago. This was probably like 10 minutes ago, and I just decided to sit in front of the camera and make a video. But the Armand Wiggins show, which is like, he had his 2021 VMA recap, and he recapped basically all the things I was interested in: Normani, Chloe, Doja, and Lil Nas X. And he mentioned something about Lil Nas X that I found really, really funny. So he mentioned that Lil Nas X like plays gay, and I was just like really laughing about it because it never really hit me until yesterday when I was watching the VMAs. And his conduct with like Jack Harlow, like when he, like, did you see that one video of him where he's like, you know, like Jack Harlow is looking him up and down, you know, like gay baiting or whatever, and he just goes like don't act sus. And I was like watching Lil Nas X's performance, and one thing that he really goes into is the fact that Lil Nas X would like stop every moment to like give something gay. Like, he'd be performing and he'd be like, because Lil Nas X comes off like fairly masculine. Like, let's be real, like, he's not a Todrick Hall, he's not, you know, RuPaul, like, he's not that clockable. And by clockable, I mean, like, for those of us who are clockable, like, you know, back in high school, girl, like, you know, people would see you and they'd be like, can I ask you a question? You know exactly what we're talking about. And Lil Nas X doesn't really seem that clockable to me. Like, he seems like, if I met Lil Nas X and he never mentioned he was gay, like, I guess back when Old Town Road came out, like, I would not have assumed that he was. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but he definitely does seem to be as if he's playing a part, or definitely highlighting or bringing out the more feminine aspects of his career. his career, of his personality, you know, in the way he twerks, and I guess, you know, cracking is, you know, breaking his wrist, you know, whatever it is that, you know, us gays just do all the time. I'm not really sure, but I was just like watching that performance and I was like, okay, like Lil Nas X is somebody who just seems like a, what do you call it, like a, he's somebody who, you know, loves attention. And I was like just watching the video and I was just like, okay, like I can definitely see the way he like plays gay to an extent. But when he got up there and he was talking about the gay agenda, I just thought it was so hilarious because part of like, I guess, historicizing the whole gay agenda thing is, yes, last video that I did, I mentioned how people had attacked the civil rights movement and how they had pushed it as this sort of agenda to like enforce miscegenation and like guess like normalize miscegenation in the United States of America. And for those of you who don't know, miscegenation is the idea, I guess, is just the mixing of the races, and how it was actually illegal for a large part of American history for people of two different races to get married, or, you know, whatever it was. It wasn't until 1967, which is the Loving versus Virginia decision, when the Lovings, which was a white man and a black woman, were able to successfully fight a conviction that they had in Virginia for basically being an interracial couple. And how there was a whole agenda, again, of anti-civil rights, you know, people, especially like Southern Democrats at that time, to be like, the civil rights movement is about miscegenation and it's about orgies, and how, you know, think about the children, you know, like virtue signaling. And I was just looking into that and I was like, okay, well, that's definitely the way that people can take something that is about an identity and about representation and about just civil rights and make it something of an agenda to try to compromise its validity or compromise its status and compromise its impact in the society and the way people look at it. And that's the way that people have constantly looked at and made it like this thing about the gay agenda. When you take something and make it an agenda, what you're basically trying to say is that it's being forced upon us by the government, it's being forced upon us by the powers that be. Labels, whoever it is, you're taking something that is actually a struggle that has begun individually in many ways, something that has taken years to progress, something that has taken, you know, people were not just on board out the bat, you know, it's taken so many nameless people who will never know their names, you know. It's not like just Marsha P. Johnson and, you know, Sylvia Rivera, who I actually wrote about in an article that I wrote for the Gay and Lesbian Review, but these people whose names we'll never know, who over the course of the 20th century and even before that, in their own ways, were able to assert or at least try to celebrate their non-gender conforming identities and basically build up into this eventual movement, especially during the sexual revolution of the late 1960s, when you have the gay liberation movement really, you know, make its face with things like Stonewall. And how you can take that and ignore that or minimalize it to this government and this agenda by the government, this agenda by the powers that be to enforce a lifestyle on people, particularly children, that people are not here for. And when Lil Nas X mentioned about the gay agenda, it just made me laugh. I think it's something that, you know, I just think we hear so much about the gay agenda, and definitely like this, it's like this, you know, I don't know how to put it, but agenda to feminize the black man, I guess. And when you look at Lil Nas X and the Industry Baby video, or even at the 2020 VMAs with like all the gay black dancers in pink like twerking and doing whatever, it feels like that, you know. I understand it may feel that way sometimes, especially because I do think Lil Nas X is, again, you know, he's definitely bolstering some aspects of his personality that may not be there as naturally as we think, but for the most part, you know, that's what it feels like. Once you do label something an agenda, it's so easy to overlook those individual struggles and overlook this very, very gradual progress that took, you know, years and years to build up on, and make it immediately the states versus us, when the state has historically been against many of these marginalized identities historically. One of the books that I read for my colloquium last year was The Straight State by Margot Canaday, I believe, and it's one of the most interesting books I've ever read, and she basically talks about she covers the more hidden aspects of gender identity and sexual identities in the United States and their representation in the military, and she ties the struggle for gay liberation to citizenship. She ties citizenship with identity in this book, and it's something that you see in American history, obviously, how typically citizenship is tied to identity. Our founding fathers, who were all for the most part wealthy, slave-holding, landowning white males, that's like the peak in American history of citizenship. You're a wealthy white male, you get to vote, you get to actively participate in the government that serves you. The government serves you directly. And then, there's the genderness of it. Obviously women were excluded from voting. There's the racial aspect of it. There's the chattel slavery of African Americans, Native Americans, who are for the most part, excluded from government and things like that. And she places it into she looks at it in sexuality and the ways that homosexual men and women and gender non-conforming individuals have been largely ignored and largely just overlooked and let out and excluded from practicing and getting the right to be themselves openly and actively through violence and other aspects, like legislation and whatnot. It's the same story you have with most marginalized minorities in American history. And you get to see in this book the way that these people can eventually push forth to just be accepted and represented as human beings in society. It's something that happened even in my lifetime. 2015 was when gay marriage was legalized, per the Supreme Court. That's very, very, very in recent history, considering that things like Stonewall were in 1969 and even other, revolutions that happened. You had the Compton Cafes riots, which is something a lot of people don't really know about, in 1966, when you had drag queens and trans women riots in the Compton's Cafe, which was in San Francisco in 1966, 3 years before Stonewall. All these like little movements of, gay people or gender non-conforming individuals and, queer people who are fighting to have their voices heard. All of that can be disregarded when you say this is an agenda. It's an agenda all of a sudden, and it's an agenda to, miscegenation is an agenda, civil rights, whatever it is. It's like, this is an agenda now. So now the state that has historically oppressed and marginalized these people becomes the agents of that tool to push upon the general populace what it has historically tried to hide and discriminate against. I just thought that was very, very interesting, and I just decided to come up here today and make a video about the gay agenda and how I fell for it and how I'm an agent of it and how I believe in the fact that maybe we should all be gay. That's no, truthfully speaking, it was just, I guess, a random spur of the moment video. I just really wanted to share that. I just wanted to, I guess, share my thoughts on the gay agenda and what I think about the term gay agenda and why it is so, I think, very disrespectful and completely disregarding of the very, very long history that comes before we get till today, with gay liberation and I mean the vastness of gay and gender non-conforming identities in this country, and to reduce that to an agenda is quite ridiculous. Okay, so outside of that though, I did want to say that I actually did get to watch the VMAs. I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, for the most part, what I will say is I was like watching the VMA red carpet, like streaming it on YouTube, and I was thinking to myself, I don't know who a lot of these people are. I don't know if it's because I'm like 25 now, so like all of a sudden I guess I'm completely oblivious to like what's happening out there. Lots of like TikTok stars, whatever it is. I did think that, Chloe, she was pretty cool, I guess. And I do want to make a video later on Chloe and Normani and Lizzo, because I have heard people speak rather openly about the fact that they do think there may be an agenda in some way with the way that Black women artists are being represented today. A lot of the ones coming up today, they think it's overtly sexual, and they think it's harkening back to the Jezebel trope. And Lizzo was getting flack for this a couple weeks ago, I believe, when Rumors came out, I thought was very ironic that Rumors was literally addressing that, and then she was on camera crying, and I know Chloe Bailey was on camera earlier this year crying on her Instagram, and people are talking about like this, I guess, Jezebelian agenda. And for those of you who don't know, you know, a Jezebel is a trope that was oftentimes attached during the era of chattel slavery to enslaved black women as being like sexually loose and amoral and having endless libido, but it was more so just a tool to explain away white male sexual aggression and the sexual exploitation of enslaved black women and girls. That's really just the gist of the Jezebel trope. And the way that people, I guess nowadays, are bringing it up against Lizzo and weaponizing it, I think, against women like Lizzo and Chloe and Normani. I have my own opinions of that, and I definitely was, you know, I'm probably going to make that video tomorrow. I don't even know. But I was definitely going to get into that a little later. But I guess, for the most part, I enjoyed the VMAs, I guess, like those 4 performances. That's really all I saw. But outside of that, this is just my video on the gay agenda, and I think the way that it reduces the civil rights struggle. It reduces the stories of so many people to this agenda of the state, when the state, once again, has been a tool and an agent against these marginalized groups and identities. You know, you can't talk to a trans woman who was murdered in 1972 because she, you know, decided to live authentically as herself, and then turn around and say, this is a gay agenda, this is the government that, you know, the whatever it is that's being forced upon us, when she, you know, for the most part, probably died and did not get any justice because the police officers didn't give a damn that there was just a trans woman murdered. You know, it just seems very weird, especially when we still live in an era where we still have such overt homophobia. You know, like the way that, you know, I looked at this one documentary about Jamaican queens and, you know, the homophobia that still exists there in places in Africa and the Middle East. Really, we're just getting to a point where, you know, these identities worldwide, just because we live in the United States, they're still often ridiculed, and it can be very, very dangerous to live that way. So to me, to reduce it to agenda, just, no, I'm sorry, I'm not here for it. But that's just my opinion, and I wanted to share it. But again, thank you guys for watching. So if you like this video, this very, very unscripted and unplanned video, and I'm not saying that ironically, like it really, really was. But if you liked it, please like, subscribe, whatever, you know, engagement. And thank you for watching. Bye.